As a man, as a father, what's the most important thing you can do for your children? That's a question I asked my father-in-law, who was married for 62 years, and he shared with me something that I was not expecting him to share. Who am I? I'm Dr. Manny Scott. I've lived in 26 places before I was 16. My pops was locked up for most of my life. My stepfather was addicted to drugs and an alcoholic, and my mother did the best she could with what she had, but life was hard. Life was really hard. And so I didn't have the best role models. I didn't have the best father figures. I didn't have the best examples to look to growing up. Where I'm from, no men stayed married. Where I'm from, young men were socialized to believe that our self-worth was tied to our ability to get girls, to sleep with women, to sleep with girls, to have sex, and a lot of it. Our self-worth was tied to that. And so I grew up with an unhealthy model of masculinity, an unhealthy model of manhood, and in some ways toxic. And I grew up with a terribly deficient model of fatherhood. How can you be something you've never seen? How can you do something you've never seen other people do? When my wife was pregnant with my oldest son, I was scared to death because I thought I was going to ruin his life. I didn't know how to be a dad. I don't know what a good dad does. And so I was scared. And so I was determined to break a cycle, and I was determined to be a good dad, but I didn't know how to be a good dad. I'd seen fathers with their children, but I didn't live with them, and I didn't see them behind the scenes. I didn't know what dads did behind closed doors. I didn't know how they behaved. I didn't know how they corrected their children or loved their children. I just didn't know a whole lot of stuff. And so I grew up with this limp emotionally and mentally with regard to fatherhood. And I'm like, God, I don't know how to be a good dad. And so when my son was on the way, I'm scared to death, but I'm determined. My love for him is so great. I'm determined to be the best dad that I can be. So I knew that kids become what you are, not necessarily what you tell them to be. And so I knew he would be like me. I knew I would rub off on him. I knew he would look to me as his example. I just felt so inadequate as a man and as a father. But my love for him was so great. My love for my children is so great that it motivated me and fueled me to be the best dad I could be. Back to my father-in-law. He raised 6 kids. He was married to my mother-in-law for 62 years. They raised 6 kids. All 6 of the kids graduated from high school and college, and have all been just wonderful people. And so I wanted to ask him, I'm like, man, you have wisdom that can help me. So I used to just pick his brain on all kinds of stuff, but this is what I asked him. What's the most important thing I can do as a dad for my kids? And I was expecting him to say, spend quality time with them, or I was expecting him to say, buy them gifts, or, take them on vacation, or I was expecting him to just list out things I could do. Man, what he shared with me is probably the hardest thing I could do, the hardest thing to do and be for your kids. He looked me in my face. He says, Manny, the best thing you can do for your children is love their mother. Let them see you loving their mother. Let them see you treating their mother with respect. And he'd never seen me disrespect Alice or none of that. He was telling me from his experience. When your children see you loving their mother, there's so many benefits to that for the children. They get to see what healthy love looks like. They get to see what a loving father and husband looks like. They get to see what a loved woman looks like and feels like, and that can provide for them the healthiest example for their own lives. That can lay the foundation for them to flourish in every area of their life. That can prepare them to look for the kind of partner that they can have that with. That can show them, the boys, how to be men. That can show the daughter how she should be treated and how she should be loved. There's so many benefits from loving the woman that gave birth to your child. The implications of this are for some brothers who maybe are thinking about having kids or sleeping with somebody. I need you to know, man, look, if you sleep with a woman that you wouldn't want to raise kids with, then you shouldn't sleep with her. If you don't want to raise kids with her, then don't sleep with her, because that's always a risk. And you risk bringing a child into the world from a woman that you don't love or that you don't really care for. And not only that, it's going to hurt your relationship with that child. It's going to hurt the model you're giving that child. And that child is going to grow up with a limp. That child is going to grow up with some deficiencies. You are creating a broken home because you're not going to stay with that woman. There are so many kids in the world like me who grew up with a brokenness and a wound and a father void in my heart that crippled me. And I've had to learn a whole lot of stuff the hard way through mentors, and like it's a mosaic of mentors, but it's not the ideal way. It's not God's way, right? And so as a man, I want to encourage you, man, if you're a father, if you're thinking about being a father, make sure you are marrying the woman that you want to give birth to your children, and that you are staying present, committed to her, and loving her to the best of your ability. The Bible says that husbands are to love our wives like Christ loved the church. We're to sacrifice our own self for our wives. We're to sacrifice our own comfort to make sure our wives are loved. Now, if you marry a trifling woman, then it's going to be hard for you to sacrifice for her, because she's going to abuse you, take advantage of you, manipulate you, spend all your money, and ruin your life. I'm just going to assume that I'm talking to a brother, talking to a man who has a woman who's a good woman, but maybe an imperfect woman, and your marriage is struggling or whatnot. You're trying to figure out what's the best thing I can do for these kids, man. Learn to love your wife. If that means you got to go to counseling, go to counseling. My wife and I were having some challenges, and we just needed an outside expert to facilitate the conversations for us. And so that's what we did. We found a Christian counselor, Dr. Mike. This brother has been tremendous for us because he's facilitated things for us and helped us work through things, and our marriage is stronger than ever. And our relationship is better than ever, and our sex is better than ever, and our life is better than ever, and our family is flourishing, and our children feel our love. Our children say mom and dad are like goals, relationship goals. That honors us, man, because I've done my best to break the cycle of absent fatherhood in my family. I've done my best to break the cycle of dysfunction in my family. I've been married 23 years, man, and I'm the dad I never had, and being a good father to my children has healed me from my own father's absence. Loving my children with this woman of my dreams has healed me in so many ways. And so, brother, the best thing you can do for your children is love the woman that gave birth to them. And if by chance, whatever reason, it does not work out, still treat that woman with love and respect. Make sure you are not disrespecting that woman. And if you are disrespecting her, you shouldn't have had kids with her in the first place. That's a whole different video. But I'm talking about the dad right now who's saying, what can I do to be a better dad? You can keep buying all that stuff. You can keep taking them on trips. You can do all of that. But if you don't love their wife, then it's not as influential and as impactful as you hope it will be. All right. It's harder. It's the hardest thing to do, man, to subordinate your feelings sometimes. Sacrifice yourself in order to love your wife and make sure she feels loved. And hopefully she's doing the same for you. Ideally, it's a two-way street. You love her, she loves you, and the children see and experience that love. I'm assuming that's what I have with my wife, and I hope that's what you have with yours. Love the woman that gave birth to your children. Love their mother to the best of your ability. Commit, cleave to that woman to the best of your ability. Where you go, you take her with you. I'll give you this story, and then I'll finish this video. I was on the road, traveling, speaking a lot, and there was a lot of temptation, a lot of opportunities to cheat on my wife, a lot of opportunities to stray from my marriage, and there were moments of weakness for me. But I learned early, thank God I learned, that as soon as I'm done speaking, I need to get on a plane and get my butt home, because the longer I'm away from her, the more I give the devil an opportunity to get between me and my wife. And eventually, I started taking her and my children with me on the road. That's why we homeschooled our kids. I need my family together. My father-in-law taught me that too. He says, if you go as much as you can together, you don't give the devil room to get in between you guys. Love that woman. Love that woman. I've loved my wife. And 23 years in, we've had some rough patches. Year 7 and year 15 were really, really hard for me, but we made it through those. We worked through those. And almost 23 years in now, man, it is wonderful. And not only that, man, my children are flourishing and doing really well. All right, man. God bless you. Be sure to like, subscribe, look around at this channel. I'm doing my best to share wisdom for anybody who wants to flourish in life, but especially people who started off at the bottom, started off with a disadvantage, started off as an underdog, started off with a broken home, started off with your pops or moms absent or strung out, man, listen, I started at the bottom and I worked my way to be where I am, financially free, happily married. I have these 3 amazing teenagers. I'm a pilot, real estate investor. I always wanted a mentor. I always wanted someone to teach me, help me, and very few people did. And so I'm thankful for the few mentors that did take time to invest in me, because I was a lot of work. For the most part, I have had to learn a lot of stuff the hard way and work through a lot of stuff on my own. I don't want it to be as hard for you. So like, subscribe, join me in this community, this flourishing community, and let's grow together. All right. Thanks again. I'm Dr. Manny Scott. I'll see you soon.